Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is your course in charge, Dr. NIGHAT SARWAR. Today I would like to start my fourth session about course Radio News Reporting and Production. In this session, we will discuss sources of news and reporting. News gathering is an important part and a specialized job of radio journalism. Broadly speaking, there are two basic sources of news. One is staff reporters and another one is news agencies, both national and international. However, for radio there are some other sources as well. There is also marked difference between newspaper and radio in the treatment of these sources. For radio editors, the main source of news material are government official sources, reporting units of radio and stringers, news agencies, monitoring service, radio news conference or interviews, and reporting for radio. Now come to government or official sources. In Pakistan broadcasting, all news affairs are centralized and handled by the Central News Organization in Islamabad. The Central News Organization and all its reporting units at radio stations throughout the country keep a very close interaction with the federal and provincial information department and ministries to get official news as quickly as possible. The information department also rely too much on radio for the projection of their news in the desired style. The information wing of the federal government is called the Press Information Department. Its abbreviation is PID. With its main office in Islamabad and regional offices in all the 4 provincial capitals and some other major towns. They actually work as public relation department for the government and federal ministers to ensure the coverage and publicity of their news activities. These reports are issued in the shape of handouts which are sent to radio, television and newspaper. Every day the radio newsroom receives a bunch of handouts containing official news. These include reports of cabinet meetings, National Assembly, Senate ministers' messages, development stories and official clarification or contradiction of certain press reports and a lot of other things. In special cases and unusual situation, press notes are also issued to explain the official position or point of view. But all routine news comes through handouts. These are quite important for a radio editor because these are official and authentic. Anyhow, the editor should use his own discretion and professional skill and in using them on the basis of their news values. These handouts are not official order but only information messages from the official quarters and should be treated as such. Editors are absolutely free to use only what they think contain interesting information for listeners and in and outside the country. Press notes are to be taken more seriously because they are issued in special cases and generally contain serious information, but these too should be properly edited and summarized according to the space of the bulletin. The Press Information Department and the radio newsroom are very closely linked in respect of professional cooperation. An active information officer in Press Information Department would always make it a point to inform the newsroom about any official news story and would prefer to give it quickly to the radio. On provincial level, the same job is done by the Directorate of Public Relations DPR and the information officer have similar contacts with the news units of the capital cities to ensure coverage of the provincial news. They also issue press notes and handouts. It may here be clarified that in our country, handouts and press notes are issued by the federal or provincial governments, where similar news containing a statement issued by semi-official departments and bodies like university and WAPDA are called press release and not handouts or press notes. Whenever there is some disturbing situation like serious accidents, explosion, firing, violent demonstration, earthquake or flood devastation, you can easily expect a press note from the administration giving an explanation of the event or situation. Under the existing system, we know that information officers, both central and provincial, work as PROs to various ministers, and naturally they are more enthusiastic about the coverage of their ministers' activities and engagements. It is here the public relationing and professionalism clash at least sometimes, and the radio editor should think twice before using or rejecting such handouts. Sometimes radio editor depend too much on official handout and use them as essential news material. Therefore, radio journalism has also been nicknamed as handout journalism. This sarcastic remark is only partially true. Most of the alleged restriction on the radio editor is self-imposed, as expect in case of some very sensitive news events, the editor have a free hand and can use their professional skills in preparing their bulletins. The government officials are no doubt keen to ensure the coverage of press note material, but press notes are not issued every day. One may receive a press notes after several months where handouts contain every day in large numbers. These should be treated on the basis of their news content alone. At times there are official pressure, but to resist pressure is an essential qualification of a good news editor. Another source of newsworthy material is reporting units, reporters and stringers. A news unit is an integral part of each radio station in Pakistan. There are several reporting units which feed the central news organization and cover the entire region under their professional jurisdiction. Major cities like Karachi and Lahore, being important news generating center, have larger news sections. These are headed by senior officers called deputy controller, whereas other units are controlled by news editors or assistant editors with sub-editors as their assisting reporters. In newspaper, we see many reporters who cover various fields like politics, commerce, crime, and courts and sports. In radio, there is none known as crime reporter or sports reporter. Let me explain the system in the Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation network. Under the existing system, candidates holding master's degree in some specific subject are allowed to compete for the entry post of sub-editor. They undergo a short induction training course at the Broadcasting Academy, where they are trained in various fields of radio journalism, including editing, drafting and reporting. So it can be assumed that they are competent to meet the requirements of reporting as and when asked to do it. From this entry post of sub-editor, they can rise to the senior most professional position of a controller of news and take up reporting assignments at various levels without being designated as reporters or chief reporters. The explanation would make clear that a radio editor is jack of all but masters of one, in which he spends most of his working life. Inside the broadcasting house, these newsmen work as editors and controllers, but outside the gates they become reporter and work and behave as such. They cover all sorts of events, including official functions of VVIPs, parliament proceedings, news conferences, and other important assignments in and outside the country. In Islamabad, there is a high-level reporting team ready to take up any assignment. It works as a regular feeder to the general newsroom at other units. The entire team, comprising 3 or 4 editors, works as radio reporter. They get information like other journalists from PID and DRP, but only for that period when they work as reporter. During this limited period, they also enjoy the concession and facilities allowed to other journalists, but when they work in newsroom as editor or controller, they are deprived of all these concessions. They cease to be journalists in the practical sense, and then in the eyes of the administration they are not journalists. Those doing anything other than reporting assignment are not allowed to have official accreditation cards. This is a peculiar feature of radio journalism in Pakistan. By virtue of getting chance to work in a particular field for longer periods, certain editors become expert in that sphere. For example, in assembly reporting. As already said, the Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation editor work as reporters only if and when they are given reporting assignments. Otherwise, they manage, edit, or supervise news bulletins. As a result of this system, you may see person who retired as controller or deputy controller of news after a long service but never worked as reporter because they were never required to do that job. Just as an authentic reference, it may here be stated that the writer of these lines has given the first reporting assignment after about 20 years in 1980, when he was required to cover the Pakistan President Press Conference in Bonn. Presently, the job of radio editors demand the skill of drafting, editing, and reporting all in one and the same person. This is not always available. There should be a separate category of reporters who should be required to do a specialization in various important fields. This category may include reporters, senior reporters, and chief reporters. It may be interesting to note that whenever a controller or director goes outside the country to cover the visit of President and Prime Minister, he is described as the special representatives of Radio Pakistan, and he works as chief reporter, but still there is no separate grade of reporter as such. Now, stringers. What do you mean by stringers? Any institution can hardly afford to employ regular correspondent in all cities and towns, so they engage freelance journalists to work under contract and receive payment according to the amount of work. The Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation has also this kind of reporters called stringers in various towns who cover their small areas and send news dispatches whenever possible. Generally, these are small local stories, and find space only in local or regional news bulletins. The idea of deputing stringers was borrowed from BBC, but it has not taken root so far. Next point is news agencies. News agencies, both national and international, are the prime source of information for any news organization because these are professional suppliers of news in an organized manner. Perhaps the British news agency Reuters is the oldest. It was established by the founder of Reuters Telegraph Company, Paul Julius Reuters. Other major international agencies are the American news agencies, which is known as AP, the French news agencies, which is known as AFP, the Chinese news agency, which is known as Xinhua, the Soviet news agency known as TASS, and the German agency DPA. Besides, all important countries have their own national agencies. For instance, Press Trust of India and Associated Press of Pakistan are national agencies. The news agencies have large teams of reporters specialized in various fields like politics, economic, finance, sports, and crimes. The news material gathered by them is edited and then transmitted to subscribers. Some agencies have specialized areas of coverage. In our region, Reuters and AFP are more active and popular. All agencies are reliable, but some are more dependable. As in other professions, there is a tough competition between the news agencies in respect of prompt and accurate coverage of events. In case of major news break like an air crash, earthquake, political revolution or coup in a country, the agencies try to overtake the rival agency and supply latest reports and figures to their customers. Sometimes the reporters are conflicting and quite confusing, but they try to give a clear picture as soon as possible. Editors sitting on news texts keep an eye on all incoming reports and use them according to their requirements. It is only through long experience that one learns the correct treatment and usage of these news messages. No doubt these agencies are professional organizations, but they do have their own policies and point of view about various developments, and at times they project the event with particular angle which results in biased and unbalanced reporting. We have seen coverage of America and British news agencies during the 9/11 crisis. The reasons are obvious. The radio editor who gets the report of almost all big agencies has a very important and intelligent role to play in selecting and rejecting these messages. Only experience can provide correct guidance. Normally, we should not satisfied with a singular course. All big events must come from more than one agencies. For domestic events, the national agencies are suitable. Radio editors rely more on APP because it is official and therefore, in their eyes, more authentic. But PPI is also quite good, notably in the field of commerce and sports. Obviously, both agencies have newspaper-oriented attitudes in their service. They are more active in the second part of the day to meet the requirements of newspaper. During the first part of the day, the radio editors have to depend on their own sources. Even otherwise, the news agencies are just one source for radio and their contribution in news bulletin is very small. Another point is monitoring service. For radio editors, monitoring is also a quick and reliable source of news. The service was started in All India Radio in 1940 during the Second World War to monitor foreign news broadcast. On the same lines, it was established in Pakistan, and it has now developed into a full-fledged department headed by a controller. This department of CNO monitors the news and current affairs program of all important radio stations including BBC, Voice of America, Voice of Germany, Radio Kabul and Radio Moscow. It supplies page by page monitoring report to the newsroom for the information of editor, who may also use it as a source of news if needed. This is very special service available to radio editor who, while preparing their own bulletin, are fully aware of the news stories being broadcast by other stations. They have a complete picture of the news world before them. The department compiles a comprehensive report every day. This contains all news report of all important radio stations during the last 24 hours. There is a wealth of information in these reports for journalists and publicity experts. Now come to another point, radio news conference or interviews. The news and current affairs section at almost every radio station records a weekly program called Radio News Conference. In this program, generally newspaper journalists are invited to ask questions from a VIP on a given subject. The VIP is either a minister or an expert or authority on the subject. The whole program is broadcast on a fixed day, but its news content are passed on to the newsroom. This is an authentic and exclusive source of latest information on matter of national interest. On the same line, radio interviews may also be good source of interesting information. It depends on the interviewer as to how much news material he can extract from this source. Usually, exclusive news stories emerge from personal interview. An exclusive story of extraordinary importance is called a scoop and considered a great achievement of the reporter. News interview is a difficult art and requires proper training and techniques. The framing of question is important because radio interviews are generally short. The interviewer must have good background knowledge for asking most relevant question. The news interview is somewhat different from other interview. For news, we may perhaps like to know his personal opinion or point of view, but never the stories of his family affairs. The interviewer should confine his role to asking of question and receiving answer. He should never argue with the interviewee or indulge in discussion with him. He is not a participant but a newsman who wants to drive maximum information in shape of answer to his question. So the framing of question is very significant, and these should be short, sharp and relevant. Generally, the VIPs invited to radio studio come prepared and give good and latest information about the subject. The subject is always conveyed to him and sufficient time is given for preparation. Therefore, it is an arranged event and it is well prepared. Now come to next point, reporting for radio. There is no separate category of reporters in Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation. Although news reporting is done day and night, all editors are expected to take up reporting assignment as and when required in or outside the country. For this, the newly selected sub-editors are given some initial training at the Broadcasting Academy, but in fact it takes very long time for a person to create a position in the field of reporting. Reporting for radio is somewhat different from that of newspaper. It is a race against time and demands a special skill and very high sense of responsibility. If an important seminar in a five-star hotel is followed by a dinner and you see a person in the team of journalists who is trying to rush his story on phone instead of enjoying the dinner, you should be sure that he is a radio reporter. This is because the time factor is very important for him. His story must find place in the next news bulletin that goes on the air within 60 minutes. Before doing anything else on a reporting assignment, a radio reporter will ensure that his line of communication is clear. If function ends at 1 p.m., his dispatch must reach the newsroom well in time for inclusion in the next news bulletin at 2 p.m. Unlike other reporters, a radio reporter is basically an editor. He should therefore use his editorial skill in filling a short and balanced dispatch. In other words, he does not supply raw material to the newsroom in the form of long stories, but a finished product for the news bulletins. As there are no specialized reporter in Pakistan Broadcasting Corporation, a person who is covering National Assembly proceedings today may be asked to cover a cricket test tomorrow and a Hajj conference next day. Therefore, he should be a knowledgeable person in several fields. What a radio reporter normally does: he attends more important functions like convocation and conferences, goes to airport on arrival and departure of VVIPs, sits in National Assembly and Senate, and attends press conferences and official briefing, and rushes to the scene of accident for spot coverage. He will not write a story until all facts are confirmed and verified. Radio never broadcasts corrections or contradictions. All news items are checked and rechecked before putting on the air. Sometimes this causes delay, but accuracy cannot be sacrificed for anything. The coverage of functions like conference and seminars is quite simple and easy. There are several speeches, one keynote speech and one inaugural or concluding address, usually done by a big personality like President, Prime Minister, Federal Minister, Governor, or a foreign dignitary. A clever radio reporter would concentrate on the opening or concluding speech of the chief dignitary only and make a story after adding the subject and purpose of the conference. Such functions are held in a routine matter, but there are events like natural disasters or hijacking when the reporter has to be alert every moment for any development. For specialized reporting, some special knowledge and training is also essential. For instance, an assembly reporter cannot do his job without having a proper knowledge of the rulers of business matter. He must know what is a privilege motion, a cut motion, and a point of order. He should know that he can get quite good news during the question hour, also when official answers are provided to the members. Most of these answers are well prepared and properly written with necessary facts and figures. A radio reporter knows that his organization is broadcasting hourly bulletins, so he should catch the first available bulletin to insert his story. He also knows that he is not to supply raw material or unedited story. He is quite capable of doing this because he is an editor and has received training in editing and drafting. He is also in a better position to suggest an intro or headline because by virtue of being present on the spot, he is aware of the emphasis given to various points during a speech or press conference. He can advise the newsroom accordingly. Public relationing is also fruitful for a radio reporter. He may not be able to go to all the functions and would like to get the relevant information on phone immediately. For this, he must cultivate reliable ties with all concerned functionaries and sources of information. Okay, this is all for today's session. Listen it carefully and make some notes. Take care. Allah Hafiz.